speaking to Maike Haberkorn today, a brilliant sales director with MoEngage based out of Germany. I had the pleasure of meeting Maike in person at Mexico in Cologne this year for the first time. And we may have started off our conversation speaking about tattoos, and I didn't think we'd get here, but I think hopefully what we're going to learn today is how to harness your authenticity at work to enhance our careers and how workplaces may benefit from encouraging authenticity in the workplace. Hi, Maike. How are you today?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Really, really glad to have you here. So we're going to start off getting to know Maike today, and I'll start off with a few sort of fun questions, if that's all right. So who are your top 3 role models, Maike?
Oh, that's a hard one. I try to be as much myself and not look to others too much, because that can also distract you. But there are certainly some role models that I have. So, for example, I would say people like Marie Curie, because she has just been such a disruptor in her own time back in the day, being a woman in such a position and being so smart and driven. I think that's a good role model to have. Number 2, and I guess you'll hear that often if you ask the same question to other people, might be Steve Jobs, just because he is or he has been someone who is really thinking out of the box. And I know that Think Different is also the Apple slogan, but still, I think that he revolutionized a lot in the market. And then there is an author that I really like. He's called Mark Manson, and he has written a few really cool books that I've read, such as Everything is Fucked, a book about hope. And he's such a positive thinker, and he also likes to give things a little twist, reflect on himself, and just try and improve his life by, well, thinking out of the box and also sharing that with others.
Amazing. I really like that last one as well, for sure. Making lemonade out of lemons. That's what it gives the vibe of. That's great. I met you in Cologne for the first time, as I mentioned. What are your top 3 things that you would recommend me doing in Cologne if I went back? Because I think last time was so chaotic.
Yeah. So Cologne, 100%. There is something that you can do at night, which is like a medieval kind of town tour, and they will tell you all the crime stories from the Middle Ages. I've done several theme tours myself for a while, and I really, really loved it. So that's cool. Then also, right in the old town, there is something called Time Ride, which is like a thing where you get a VR glasses and you go through historic Cologne, which is also quite cool. And then lastly, tourist magnet, Cologne Cathedral. I mean,
Yeah,
definitely.
I've been actually when I was really, really young, but the tours sound really good. I'm very nerdy like that. I love a
Yeah.
little.
I mean,
Walk.
otherwise, go to the gay district and have a few beers.
Oh,
Great
perfect.
area, great talks, great people.
You don't even have to say that twice. I'm there. Great. And then, as I said, this conversation is going to mention tattoos later. Can you recommend a couple of tattoo artists I should check out?
So I actually do have 2 really good ones to check out. One is in the very north of Germany in Eckernförde. Her place is called Atelier Ember, and she's an amazing tattoo artist that, for example, did my hand as well, but also quite a bit of other stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's another one who is called Lorena Morato, and she is from Brazil and has her Golden Times atelier in Cologne. She's also amazing. Both very nice ladies.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the one on your hand reminds me of when we get, well, I'm Bengali, so I sometimes come in with a bit of henna. My sister's been practicing on me, so it reminds me of that as well, which is lovely. So let's get into this sort of questions around SaaS, as much as I'd like to keep talking about tattoos forever. It would be good just to get a bit of background on you for our listeners. So give me a little insight on how you made it to this current point in your career as sales director at MoEngage.
Yeah, I think the most important thing for me personally was to get to know who I am, what I like, what I don't like about jobs. It's quite like in dating, like it's like finding the right partner for yourself is also finding your career and also finding the right companies to work for. And so I already tried to learn more no matter which role I've been taking on, and always trying to step a little bit further out of my comfort zone. So actually, when I started with my current role at MoEngage, I had 3 offers on the table, and it was the luxurious choice for me to be able to choose where I want to go. And I actually chose MoEngage because it was the furthest step out of my comfort zone. And looking back, that has been something that has always benefited me. I think this is the way you learn more, and this is also the way that, well, you can get a bigger kind of experience and take better, more interesting steps as well.
Amazing, amazing. Every time I speak to you, you're absolutely killing it. So I think it was the right choice now. That's brilliant. So as I mentioned, our conversation is going to be about authenticity today, which I hadn't even thought about, in terms of how it applies to my career before I spoke to you. So thanks for bringing this topic to my attention. I guess, how would you define authenticity, or when do you feel the most authentic at work?
Yeah, I think authenticity is generally being yourself and not having to really play a role a lot in your day-to-day work. And I mean that by saying you be yourself and you show your character, and not necessarily trying to behave in a way that is not appropriate at work. So that's two different things. But just generally, being able to talk about who you are, how you feel, not hiding anything, and just being authentic. I think that's the most important thing. And for me, it also, on my journey, had a lot to do with learning who I am. Again, it's about preferences. What am I good at? What am I bad at? But also, what do I like and what do I dislike? And kind of gaining the power to be verbal about it, because I was scared of that in the past. But by now I changed that for a few years, and that has really helped me. And that is something that usually also comes across as authentic, when you're able to voice how you feel or how you think about certain things. And even if it is something that can be scary, because especially when you're showing weakness, or when you say, hey, I'm not feeling too great, that can scare you, and that can trigger thoughts like, hey, should I do that around the workplace? I always have to be the dependent worker. And yes, kind of. I mean, you get hired to do your job, but on the other hand, we're all humans and everyone has their weaknesses. And I think that it is actually a strength to be able to acknowledge your weakness and work on it and talk to others about it.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's a really great definition. I was also doing a lot of research around this, and I was reading about like physical indicators of authenticity, non-physical ones, and like there's a really important intersectional element as well, like workplaces, recognizing as they support diversity, I would hope, in terms of like supporting physical or behavioral diversity in what looks authentic. So that could be, having different hairstyles or outfits to match based on religious, which sounds so simple. But yeah, it's so important to kind of figure out that definition as well. You may have touched on this a little bit, but was there a time that you struggled with authenticity? And can you tell me a bit about that time? And I guess like a little bit more in how that journey's looked for you and becoming authentic.
100%. So there was a time, I mean, I was quite young, I was very new in my career, and I really struggled with that, because for me, also just acknowledging weakness again and showing myself, I was always taught that, hey, this is your job, you got to do your job, and that's all that matters in this workplace. And it kind of made me miserable. And I remember, I think the worst thing that I ever experienced in that regard was that I actually had like a quarterly check-in with HR, and they said, hey, your work is amazing, and we really love the way you work, but your personality is a problem.
You're lovely.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we love you, but we hate your personality. So that was like when I decided, okay, like I'm not going to do it. I'm going to show people straightforward who I am. And if they don't like, for example, that I have tattoos, which was also a problem at that particular workplace, then it's fine. Then it's just not for me. Then I'm not the right employee, and then they're not the right employer. And experiences like that just helped me being more verbal and open about it. And
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
now
yeah, you're killing it
won't
now.
happen again.
You can have all the tattoos you want now. Yes.
I don't have them yet, but I'm working on it.
You keep me updated. How many do you have, do you think, by the way?
Oh, that's a very hard question, actually, because I don't know a lot. And it's always a question of, is 1 to 2 one motive, and where does one end and one other start? Or is it one session, because the whole back takes 7 sessions or took 7 sessions? So
just one story, one big story. Absolutely. Fair enough. I completely lost where we are, but no, I think, in terms of bringing it back to kind of authenticity, like I can really, again, from my research, I saw that a big part is developing self-awareness, yes, but it's also finding out about the context of your work and the dynamics of your work. And you're right, like sometimes that's not going to be right for you, and you kind of have to find a place that supports you for you. So I'm glad that you kind of got there in the end. I remember that you mentioned to me that like you're really, really transparent about like some really kind of basic things, but things that are important to you, and help you show up authentically. So your dogs and the fact that you would love to have them in the office, your tattoos, the way that you approach no nonsense, direct, your approach to work. So I got the sense, like straight away from speaking to you, that you have a really clear sense of self, and you understand how to advocate for yourself, that you can really play to your strengths. And incidentally, many of the materials I read regarding showing up authentically at work mention having a strong sense of self-awareness, self-examination, transparency in the workplace as really key to becoming authentic female leaders. So could you share with our listeners what advice you have for women looking to gain a deeper understanding of their own values and strengths to enhance their authenticity at work, especially like for someone like me? I'm still relatively fairly early on in my career, and like I said, I'm only examining this topic for the first time.
yeah, I think it's really about getting to know yourself, and that sounds way easier than it actually is, because it also has to do not only with asking yourself, okay, what do I want? I want to have a great salary. I want to have fun at my job. I want to have a beer fridge so I can have free beers with my colleagues. Yeah, that's always very easy. But it is harder to say, what makes me feel uncomfortable? What do I not like so much? Where am I not great at? And these are the things you have to figure out as well, and acknowledge it. Number one, if it makes me feel uncomfortable, there might be a reason for it. Even if it's someone else's behavior of other people can trigger our own fears. And this is often why we are repulsed by certain things. And so I think getting to know all of these little things and digging deeper into even bad or uncomfortable feelings is something that's super critical.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just try to always check yourself, check your behavior, check how you're feeling, and then also go into conversations about it. Like if you have a colleague and you are very bad at presentations and that stresses you because you sometimes have to do a presentation at your work, why don't you ask the colleague who is great at it to say, hey, can I get a little bit of feedback from you? Can you help me get better? Because you're really great at it. Number one, it can only help you. And number two, you might make an ally or a friend in your workspace as well, because by showing your own weakness, they will help you as well. And this will also, again, help you to learn more about yourself or how others see or perceive you.
That's amazing. And a really, really great example as well. I like that idea of like forming allies. What strategies or experiences have you found helpful in embracing transparency in your career? I mean, I don't know if it's like other communities, or I don't know what that could look like.
I think when it comes to transparency, it's always about just being honest and cutting away, the bullshit. But to also do this in a respectful way. So if you want to give feedback to a colleague, for example, and you really didn't like their presentation, for example, be constructive in your criticism, be honest, but at the same time, respect their feelings as well. And yeah, I think it's just important to, how to say, to try and stay vibing with people, to know who they are, where they are at in their career and also in their life. I mean, also for your colleagues, they're not robots, they're humans. They are sometimes feeling bad, they might have some stress at home or something else going on. So I think you should try and treat the other people as you would like to be treated, not only in your private life. That's what mamas always tell their kids, but it's the same in the workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really like the simple stuff. And I guess, yeah, building a community out of your colleagues around you and showing up for each other. That's great. Um, I wanted to know, like on a similar vein, I'm curious how your transparency and self-professed directness plays a role in negotiating key points in your career. So things like promotions, salary, new positions. Obviously we read a lot about how women sometimes have trouble advocating for themselves. So do you have any useful around that for our listeners?
Yeah. I mean, I think that a lot of women don't get taught early enough that it's totally okay to ask for something, and even if it's a raise, or to get praise for their accomplishments, because in the end, salary is just a confirmation of your accomplishments and what you've done to make the company work greater or get better results. So I think the first step is, especially when this is something that's uncomfortable for you or hard, to reflect on your own achievements, not only on your personal self, but also what you did that made the company come forward. And I think, again, on the weaknesses part that we talked about, I think talking about the example about presentations. Let's say you have to do presentations regularly, but you're not good at it. It makes you feel uncomfortable. But you asked your colleagues for help and probably even your manager and said, hey, I did work on it. I have a few weaknesses there. Could I get a training? And so by working on that and showing that you really do make an effort to walk the extra mile, this is usually something that any manager will also reward and see. And so, yeah, just try being more proactive, seeking that conversation on a regular basis. So, for example, every 6 months or once a year, check in regularly with your manager, and then, yeah, go for it. Go get that bigger salary. Come on.
Amazing. Yes, money for everyone.
Nobody's going to give it to you just like that. You have to ask for it and you have to advocate for yourself.
Yeah, but like I say, it's great to kind of reframe that and say that it's okay to show your vulnerabilities, which like I mention it later as well, but a lot of women apparently struggle with in male dominated environments. But actually showing a little bit of that vulnerability can really help you to, unlock future opportunities, new salaries, new working arrangements. So really enjoying how you're kind of reframing, looking at our vulnerabilities and weaknesses. So I was like doing some thinking around this, but obviously you can say there's no difference in how, authenticity should be viewed for women and in workplaces, especially now. But there's so much literature out there. There's so many studies out there that it feels like there does need to be a conversation. I was looking at some research by Korn Ferry, which is a consultancy. And in 2015, they interviewed female executives who often described themselves as having lived inauthentic or divided lives in the workplace, especially acting in a certain way to meet norms and expectations set by others within male-dominated cultures. And this may be a factor as to why women opt out of the leadership track, and by embracing, we're going to need to re-record that. Sorry. I've never needed so many. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, obviously, you can say that nowadays there's no difference in how authenticity should be viewed for women. But obviously, there seems to be some sort of gap. There's a lot of literature out there, a lot of studies that show that women and authenticity in the workplace does need to be a conversation. I was looking at some research by Korn Ferry in 2015, where they interviewed female executives who often described themselves as having lived inauthentic or divided lives in the workplace. Essentially, they're acting in a certain way to meet the norms and expectations set by others within male-dominated cultures. And this could be a factor as to why women, opt out of the leadership track. And actually, if they embrace themselves more and express more of who they are and their particular strengths, women embrace a wider range of leadership characteristics needed to run an organization. That was quite a mouthful. So yeah, I don't know. What do you think of that? Do you think it's necessary to have a conversation around what authenticity looks like for women in the workplace?
I think authenticity is something that would really help not only women in the workplace. I think it just takes away a lot of energy trying to play a role. And believe me, I did that for a while when I was at this one role where I wasn't so happy back in the day. It just it doesn't make you feel good. It takes away energy, and that means you cannot work to the potential that you usually would have. You have less fun working because, spoiler alert, actually work can be fun. I love my job, yeah. So I know a lot of people who don't like their job so much, and mainly these people are all playing roles. So I think we should talk about that part and that realization that that role playing isn't the best thing for people in general. And on the other side, I think it makes sense to talk about the culture around it as well, because why do companies expect women to be the same kind of leadership style people as guys would be? Why? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, leadership has so many colors, and I don't think you can divert leadership into male and female leadership. I think there are different leadership styles, but it doesn't have anything to do with your gender. And I think it's very sad that this is still so deep in the heads, and I think that is still a wall that we have to break down.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of depressing nowadays, like even thinking that there needs to be a conversation of like, this is what a leadership style looks like in a man or a woman. And I think maybe the issue is like, if I think about it, there's certain ways of expressing your leadership style, your management style, behaviors at work. If it doesn't sit right with someone, and especially in a male dominated environment, it could be seen as negative or positive depending on the audience. And it can be seen as
Yeah.
like, well, she's a woman, so of course you do it that way, where the same behavior might be seen as different in a guy. So I think that could also explain why we're still having to have these conversations, and there are still studies like this out there. But that's my hot take on it.
Reality. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And it's so interesting as well that you said that it actually takes away energy not being authentic. I think that's like the exact wording that a lot of these studies I read had, that it's so draining that you don't actually end up investing the energy you should in your career. So it's
I
interesting.
mean, have you ever tried smiling the whole day when you actually feel miserable? Just
Mhm.
smiling, not doing anything else. But even that is
Yeah.
so hard.
Yeah,
So,
you're so right. I think like as I kind of, grew a little bit in my career, I think it was I became more comfortable with expressing when was having like a bad day or when I was having a good day. And it was actually way more productive because I could open up and kind of speak about, okay, how do we actually solve this? Like how do we find a solution to how I'm feeling, but ultimately the work that I'm doing. So you're right. It's so much better to reinvest that energy elsewhere and not put on like such a massive mask. I was curious to understand then, what are your kind of top flags that you look for in a new company? So what are you looking for in their culture to know that, they're going to support you being authentic at work?
yeah. I mean, obviously, I check their official website, look at videos they might have. Some companies have things like image videos, but the fun thing is, what I find, those image videos and the reality are often far apart. But at least I want to take a look at what their mission statement is and what they strive to be. And if possible, I'd like to have some conversations with more than the people who interview me, because the people who interview you for a job, um, they are basically there to assess if you are right for the role. But how can I assess if the company is right for me? So I usually try to talk to some females, especially that are in the company, that are not necessarily in my department, but just to get a feeling of, how it is with that company, how the collaboration looks like, what is communication like, what does diversity mean to this company? Is it just a word on the mission statement, or is it something that is really lived? Is there a lot of females in the leadership teams, and so on? I think these are definitely things that I look at. And my husband laughed at me for this point, but I actually love a company with a beer fridge. Not only because I like beer, but because it gives you a place to get together with your colleagues. And this way, it's often way, way easier to connect, like over a beer, not over too much work stuff, just like having a chat and getting to know people. And I'm happy to say I've made a lot of friends in my career that were colleagues back in the day and that are real friends now. So a lot of that started with a beer fridge. So
yeah, amazing. That's the best investment a company can make. We only get together like once a week here, but we'll try and make time for like a wine for sure once a week as well.
that's fine too.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
you should use it every day.
Yes, every time I'm there.
What the weekend is for.
Sorry?
That's what the weekend is for.
What the weekend is for? Gosh, no, I'm trying not to drink during the week at the moment anyway. Christmas is coming up. So yes, got this. I forgot what we were talking about. And then finally, I think it feeds into the last question as well. What do you think organizations could be doing better to empower women to show up more authentically at work?
That's a good question. I think it's a hard one as well because in the end, it starts with the woman herself if she wants to open up and to take that risk. So she has to be courageous enough to just do it and try it out. However, I think, talking about open communication, sharing that there are certain females in the leadership board, probably even introducing some neutral person that you can talk to if you feel like there's a problem. Things like that can really help it, I think.
Yeah.
Or also, what was something from my own experience, I had a manager before, and I remember that for the first interview, I was like, okay, you know what? I mean, I have a lot of tattoos. I'm not going to hide it the whole day. I'm not sure how you see that. And he just like put his sleeve up and he was really tattooed. So I think if the leadership people themselves show authenticity and not only meaning tattoos, but just generally show that they are also capable of not acting like a robot, but acting like a human person, that will also encourage the other employees to do so.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. Like before we started this call, I was looking at like different management styles and like there's this like whole article on, or I didn't know there was so much literature around this. Genuinely, it's been such a fun one to research. But there was this whole article on like different management styles and how it can support authenticity that way. And funnily enough, the best managers were, fairly authentic themselves. They shared enough of their life with their colleagues in the context of what was appropriate for their workplaces. But on the you get some company cultures where there's like away days or like, I don't know, like company team building days planned, and it doesn't really fit in. Like it's very alien to what the usual lifestyle is at work. So they were saying that, like those kinds of colleagues were like really confused and absolutely hated their management because they were being made to open up when the management weren't opening up to them, which I found quite funny. So I think you've closed there with a really, really great way that you can support people to be authentic at work and close the loop with your tattoos.
You gotta practice what you preach.
Exactly.
That's management.
Yeah, it's all very simple. So I think the last few questions I had were just a few kind of bonus round of quick fire, fun questions just to finish this off. But thank you so much for going through quite a heavy topic, actually. So let's finish off with these. So favorite piece of tech or app that you're using right now?
Oh my God, too good to go. It's an app where around you, like bakeries and so on, and they have leftovers, and usually for legal reasons they can't just like donate it, so they have to sell it or throw it away. And so they basically, you can buy packages as like a third of the price. You never know what's in there, but it's like the leftovers of the day, so you get fresh produce, you rescue something from the bin, and you even save money. And I've used that quite heavily in the last week, so went to the bakery way too much. Yeah.
Sustainability queen. That's so good. I forgot about that. I'll have to get back on that. Night at the disco or night at the restaurant? I feel like I'll know the answer to this.
Night at the restaurant, but To be honest, a little bit of dancing can never hurt.
Yeah, finish off, burn it all off.
Either or.
Exactly. Favorite food?
Oh, that's very hard. That's very hard because I love all food. Today, I would say it's very, very spicy chicken biryani.
Oh, yes, that's what I've got waiting for me at home. I pre-cooked it.
Where
Yeah.
do you live again?
Yeah.
No, I'm there.
It's whatever's on Too Good to Go, basically. Favorite movie?
Oh God, that's such a salesy answer that I'm gonna say. It's Wolf of Wall Street.
Ah.
It has everything. It's funny, it's shocking, it's sexy, it's true.
I've actually seen a team that I used to work with. All of the guys were doing that one morning. And I was like, okay, you're a bit too into this.
Yeah, well,
No.
I'm not that into it, okay? So
Please tell me you're not doing that. Favorite place you've been on holiday or visited?
that's like food. That's so hard.
It's
I love
literally quick
traveling.
fire. You're really struggling.
Oh God. Yeah, I love all the good stuff in life, which is food, travel, and dogs. Yeah. So and my husband. Oh God, it's such a late. No, that's very hard. I think my favorite place in the whole world is Queensland in Australia on the East Coast.
Oh,
So
nice.
beautiful. I want to go back so much.
Is it
Now.
is it good for surfing?
Well, partially, yeah.
Okay.
But there are better spots in Australia for surfing, but it's also good. It's very good for snorkeling, though.
Oh, lovely. Okay.
Biggest alive reef in the world is the Great Barrier Reef, which is there. So.
Of course. Like I need to visit that before it dies. But that's
Yeah, well.
What is your guilty pleasure?
Oh God, I have it in the fridge. It's wine. It's definitely wine.
Yeah, that's a very easy answer for sure. And finally, if you had one superpower, what would it be and why?
Flying.
To Queensland.
100%, that's easy. I've always loved flying, even if it was just on a plane, because obviously I don't have wings. But yeah, it would definitely be flying. I cannot even tell you why. I just love to get from one place to the other so easily.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of like, yeah, just being up there. I like that if you are above the clouds, the sun is always shining.
Yeah. Oh, what a beautiful way to finish off. Yeah, that's lovely. Okay, thank you. Thanks so much for today. I want everyone to know as well that Maike was very excited because it was her first podcast recording and you absolutely smashed it. So thank you so much for your time and for all your insights today. Hopefully we've all learned something. Basically, the lesson is just to back yourself at work and you'll be fine. So thanks, Maike.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Cheers. Bye.